paranormal. It surrounds us. It's everywhere. Tonight, you will hear from the people who live and work within these highly active locations, all in the efforts to discover America's most haunted. With your host, ghost hunter and author, Dan Terry.
Good evening, boys and ghouls. I am Dan Terry, your ghost host with the most haunted. We are hitting one of my favorite subjects tonight. You guys who follow me, especially those of you who follow me on the UNX Network, if you get the UNX magazine, you know, back in January, I did a long article on vampires. There we go, Vampires in America. And then I had a second to it in February, which was Vampires in New Orleans. There it is. I'm really into the vampire thing. And this has started, well, that was part of what started me into the whole paranormal realm was, as I've said many, many times, Kolchak the Night Stalker, the very first TV movie. And I mean, for like 20 years, it was the most watched television movie, was the original Kolchak the Night Stalker, where he was fighting a vampire. And that really got me in. I read Salem's Lot. If you guys haven't ever read Salem's Lot, it is a retelling of Dracula by Stephen King, but it was a magnificent job. Didn't care for the movie that much, but I did love the book. I reread that a dozen times. So when I got the chance, invitation to talk to Keith Evans, I couldn't resist. I'm like immediately, yes. Oh yeah. When can we do it? Keith is has a bachelor's degree in chemistry. He's retired military. He's retired forensic scientist, and he is an author. He's been researching the paranormal. He is a paranormal investigator, but he's the author of 2 books. The first is The Hayes House, Ghosts Are People Too. And the second one is Vampires, Dead or Alive. And I just cannot wait to talk to Keith. So let's bring him up and chat about one of my favorite topics, the undead. Hey, Keith.
Hey, how's it going?
Well, better today. Weather's nice, and I get to talk to you because there's only been one other author on vampires I've got to talk to, a guy out of Massachusetts, I think, up on the northeastern coast. But this is my favorite topic. So let's talk about vampires to start. What got you to the point where you wanted to write about this?
Well, it all started when I was a teenager in middle school. There was a British sitcom, like soap opera, that came on in the afternoons after I got home from school, and it was called Dark Shadows.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know if you remember Dark Shadows. You might be too young.
May I say, I love the series. It was very frightening. The movie kind of sucked. Go ahead. The one with Johnny Depp.
Back in the late 60s, early 70s, Dark Shadows came on where I lived at in Maryland around 4:30 in the afternoon. And it had it was centered around a vampire named Barnabas Collins. And Barnabas Collins was kind of like to me, was like a superhero with super abilities. He could disappear or, shapeshift. And he didn't have any reflection in the mirror. So he stayed away from mirrors. So that wouldn't be a good dead giveaway if someone couldn't see him, see his reflection. So I always was trying to figure out why a vampire has these abilities. And I saw no place, and every book I read, they never talked about how a vampire can do what they do. Mm-hmm. And it always puzzled me that a vampire could be both dead and both animated like a living biological person. So anyway, I really Barnabas Collins was my hero. So I thought about it over the years and always thought about how to explain away or explain how vampires do what they do. And throughout my education, I've taken physics courses and classes, and genetics, and all types of chemistry courses, and all types of physics. So within the book, Vampires Dead or Alive, I kind of break it into each chapter is a characteristic, a historical characteristic about a vampire. Just to name a few, shape-shifting, being able to disappear, not having a reflection in a mirror, and just the fact that they can, biologically mutate. That's some interesting genetics right there. So I attempt to each chapter take a certain characteristic and compare that to, is that more like a living person or a dead person?
Okay.
So say the characteristic to have very pale skin, like some living people do have very pale skin, like if they're albino. So, and then again, other people, their pale skin would be a sign that they're anemic. So I do that throughout the chapter. Each chapter is about a different characteristic. And I try to explain why a vampire has pale skin. And I think it's more or less vampires were extraterrestrial, that when they originally came here, they came from a planet that had a very dim star. And they were in the Goldilocks zone to have life to be created on that planet. But probably the star was so dim, it was almost like on a full moon, how our night skies are lit up by that full moon. That's probably the way their star lit up their planet. Mm-hmm. So I think what happens with a vampire when they're come into direct sunlight with a medium-sized star like we have on Earth, it denatures their DNA. So that would kill them. So that's the reason why they have to avoid direct sunlight. So I just really feel that it's such an interesting subject, and no one else had approached to explain any of these reasons why vampires can do what they do. I thought, well, why not write a book about it? And I think people like it. I look today, and Vampires Dead or Alive on both Amazon and Kindle are rated at 5 stars.
Oh, outstanding. Great.
And my first book, The Hayes House Ghosts Are People Too, I don't think that book, I mean, I didn't look all the time, but when I did look, I think it was about 4.5 stars was the highest that it ever reached that I could remember.
Keith, why do people have such a, there's a fear, but also a real love of the vampire mythology?
Well, I think people in general in America fear all paranormal. And I hate to say it, but I think a lot of it is based on their religious beliefs.
Okay.
And which is kind of sad, because I think with me, I can have God and I can also have paranormal, and think both are pretty much in our life to stay. So, but some people say you can't have one without the other, or if you have one, you can't have the other. Mm-hmm. So I really believe that paranormal is a natural thing. I don't think ghosts or spirits are trapped. I don't think if you're being visited by a ghost or a spirit, I don't think it's an attachment. I think it is just the ghost or spirit sees something interested in you, or wants to help you, or looked after you, or just observe you. And I don't see where that's a problem at all. So I look at it this way. You don't consider your wife or your best friend or your family at times to be an attachment. And when a ghost or spirit wants to be around you, you shouldn't consider it to be a negative thing. You should just consider it to be, well, they have something interested, they see something they like about me or they have in common with me when they were alive. And that's why the ghost of spirit's there.
Okay.
It's almost like us watching TV. We don't watch TV because we're ghosts of spirits. We watch TV because we see something interesting that we want to observe. And I think ghosts of spirits are the same way, except we're pretty much their TV. And if they see something about us that they like and they find comforting or they find familiar or they find entertaining, then they're going to, be around. And I've never, very rarely had to use any type of prayers or protection to help or assist me with any type of ghost or spirit. I had a couple occasions at the Chestnut Street Cemetery where I had ghosts of spirits that were just causing all my equipment to malfunction, or they were just draining my batteries. So it made it very difficult to do paranormal research without my equipment. So I did utilize a protection prayer, and it worked. I haven't had any problems with my equipment at the Chestnut Street Cemetery since that time. And it was probably about a year ago or so that I was having so much problems with my equipment. And that's to include my my cameras and my cell phone.
Okay.
So I really do believe that too much fear about the paranormal is not healthy for any living being, to be afraid of something without due cause. And I really feel the more they learn about vampires and ghosts and spirits, the less they fear the subject. Because I've been around the subject all my life, and that's the reason why I really don't have any fear of it, because I realize that it's kind of not in my best interest to have all that stress when nothing bad ever happens.
Right.
I mean, I watch podcasts every day where, well, not every day, but a lot of times where people say that there's a terminology used on TV programs where they say that they're trying to think of the term right now, where a demon is trying to possess you.
Okay.
You're being not depressed, but
Oppressed.
oppressed. Yes, that's it. And a lot of people feel that because they don't feel good today, they're being oppressed. Well, I'm like 67 years old and have a lot of injuries from the army and arthritis, and just because you're feeling bad and not feeling good that day doesn't mean the devil's oppressing you or some demon or whatever is oppressing you. So I see things every day where I feel people mistake paranormal in a very negative way. And it's just life. Not every day do we feel well. Not every day does our bodies feel well. And as you get old, you can't run to the doctor every time you feel bad, because you're going to have chronic injuries and chronic illnesses that aren't going to get better. You're just going to have to live with it. So, and I surely don't feel that I've ever been oppressed in any way. If anything, most ghosts and spirits have bent over backwards to help me if they make themselves known to me.
Okay. Well, I'll have to agree with you on that. And I know from all the ghost teams I've talked to and all the stuff I've done with other groups, whenever a new movie like The Exorcist or The Omen or whatever's popular now comes out, they get swamped with calls for that their house is possessed, or there's a demon around them, or their child is possessed. But it always happens right after the movie. And those movies are not that accurate.
No, they're not at all. And a lot of times the movies are there just to scare you, because a lot of people think that's what paranormal is for. They think it's to scare them. And if you're frightened, it does increase your adrenaline, which can help healing and can also, you know, help you if you have to run really fast from something.
Mm-hmm.
But the bottom line is, I don't look at paranormal as an opportunity to be frightened. I look at paranormal as an opportunity to talk to a ghost or spirit that's been dead for some time and that might really enjoy having a primitive conversation with a human being or a living human being. I'm sure after I die, I may still consider myself to be a living or a human being, even if I'm dead, and maybe ghosts of spirits do too. But I feel that most ghosts of spirits enjoy communicating with me via my Obelisk 5B.
Mm-hmm.
The last paranormal short session 12 that I did, I have a YouTube channel called Paranormal Short Sessions by Keith Evans. I was at the Apalachicola graveyard. I don't think it actually has a name,
I love that.
but it's in
graveyard.
Apalachicola. It's not the Chestnut Street Cemetery. That's smaller. This is a larger graveyard. And I was there and I stopped by and I visited the individuals who had lived at the Hayes House, where I wrote the book, The Hayes House Ghost or People. I went to visit their graves, the Buck family, the Hayes family, the Gibson family, and the Tolan family. The Tolan family just recently passed away. They were very helpful in some of the background and history about the Hayes house. And in the Hayes house, I write about a lot about the history. You find out a lot of history about the Hayes family. I really didn't have that with the Buck family because there was really no one alive to give me much history. I had one distant relative who shared some history with me on the Buck family. So the Hayes house, there was a lot of history so that you could connect the paranormal data in your own mind with the history that I'd given you. Because everyone's analysis about paranormal data can and will be different because we bring our own life experiences into everything. Mm-hmm. So you might see something a certain way and I'll look at the same paranormal data and draw different conclusions. So anyway, during this paranormal short session 12, I tried to use phonics. Phonics is one of the modes on the Obelisk 5. Okay. And I hadn't turned the camera on yet. I was getting ready to do a promo where I advertised my paranormal short session by Keith Evans on Instagram and Facebook. And when I was trying to do the promo, I turned the phonics on and automatically I got thank you, but I didn't have the camera on. So I kind of lost that one. But I now think that was probably coming from the Buck family, the Hayes family, and the Gibson family for me stopping by and saying hello. Okay. I think they were thanking me for that. And then I got one other between, I guess, maybe promo, I only do 3 now. Between promo 2 and 3, I got the word get out. At least that's what it sounded like. Mm-hmm. So, I didn't even respond to that because it seemed like the first one you get is thank you and the second one you get is get out. So, but you're going to get different words and you can interpret it whatever way you want. If a person is inclined to think everything's evil and demonic, they'll get frightened and you'll see them running out of the cemetery just because they heard the word on phonics, get out. But I just choose to ignore some of the negative stuff because I think ghosts of spirits, there might be several in the area whenever you do a short session. My short sessions are usually anywhere between 20 to 30 minutes, sometimes less. Mm-hmm. So during that period of time, you might have several ghosts or spirits that are close enough to your Obelisk 5 to choose words or to whatever mode you're using and make choices. So just because you get a negative choice doesn't mean that it's demonic or evil or that you should leave right away. It could just be a ghost just jerking you around. I mean, people jerk each other around. People lie. People don't tell the truth. People are deceptive. What makes you think ghosts and spirits aren't like that also? Some of them, maybe not all of them, and maybe not all the time. But when they are, you just can't always consider it to be a demonic or a situation where, you're in danger. Now, I will say one thing. When I got the word get out on phonics, it might have been a warning because I'll look on the ground and there were red ants.
Oh.
And I know this from the time that I was in the Army at Fort Sam Houston. If I get bit by red ants, give me about 2, 3, 4 hours and I'll have diarrhea for the rest of the day. So I think one of them may have bit me in the adrenaline or when you're preoccupied by trying to do a paranormal short session and do everything important and analyze every word to its fullest extent, I probably may have been bitten by at least one of them because the rest of the day I did have diarrhea. And I haven't had that since I was bitten by a red ant at Fort Sam Houston. So that get out may have been a warning about the red ants.
Or maybe the diarrhea was a possession thing where you was expelling the evil.
What's that now?
I said maybe the diarrhea was you expelling the evil from attempted possession.
Well, when red ants bite certain people, they have a certain enzyme within their bite, which causes some sensitive people to run a fever and to have watery diarrhea. So I would take it. I don't feel like it was anything evil other than being bitten by a red ant. And it was probably just one because in my I'm preoccupied about doing a really good paranormal short session, and I don't do more than one take, and I do it live. And I think I just did not pay attention to it when they bit me. I did get out of the way, and I think if one was on me, they must have fell off. So, but I now look at it as a warning. When the phonics, someone said get out, they were warning me there's red ants here. So the rest of the time I avoided the red ants. So you have to be open-minded and analyze everything that you hear doing paranormal research, because that get out, some people might have thought that meant leave the graveyard.
Right.
And it might have just said get out of where you're standing because there's red ants there. So you have to be open-minded and evaluate everything in a way that involves your environment. Look around. When you're out someplace during the day, you can see red ants. At night, it would be dark, and I would be at the mercy of being bitten by them. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people say, why do you want to go paranormal researching during the day? Well, that's one reason right there, because, Florida's got everything from venomous spiders to venomous snakes to even red ants are venomous if you're allergic to their enzymes within their mouth when they bite you. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's the reason why I like to go paranormal researching during the day. You can see everything. If you go at night, even in a building, if there are bees there mm-hmm. and you accidentally knock something over and it disturbs those bees, they're going to look at you as the problem and sting you. So there's a lot of not paranormal dangers, but real physical dangers that you might run into unless you have looked at the place really well in advance to your paranormal research that you want to do in the pitch dark. But I really enjoy watching other paranormal researchers that do their paranormal during the day. Mm-hmm. I think doing it at night is like setting the scene for it to be scary. And I like to make my daytime paranormal research sessions more about informational and learning something from a person that's been dead for a while. And by talking to a person that's been dead for a while, you're actually showing that person respect by, giving them a voice and giving them an opportunity to say what they want to say and be out there for other people to enjoy whatever they say.
Makes sense to me. Hey, I do have to stop for a break. So, Keith, if you'll wait for a second, I'll be right back with you. And we'll talk some more about both. I want to hear more about the history of the Hayes house and more about your vampire thoughts. So,
all right, sounds good.
Hold on. I've been to that Apalachicola Cemetery several times. It's creepy because of the Spanish moss and the trees and all of that, but at the same time, it's so historical, and the stones are old, but they're not worn so bad that you can't read them anymore. There's a lot of interesting stones there as well. And I'm a guy who goes into cemeteries a lot, mostly in the daytime because I'm going for the history. But if you get a chance, walk through those old cemeteries, man, you become addicted to that. And in the meantime, here's something that you cannot get addicted to, but something you need to know about. Back in a minute.
The Onyx Network presents a health and wellness spiritually based brand of hemp-derived CBD products made by Hopewell Farm in Harrogate, Tennessee. We apply our Cathara energy work with all of our plants and products. Our products made in small batches with only 2 ingredients of pure hemp, full spectrum crude oil, and coconut-derived MCT oil. Third-party lab tested for potency and legal THC levels with 6 strengths of 1 ounce oil to choose from. Know what you're buying and get what you pay for from Hopewell Farm. Applied directly to a specific area, Hopewell Farm topical salve in 1 ounce and ½ ounce sizes made with pure hemp crude oil, comfrey extract, and all natural ingredients. Find the Hopewell Farm link and coupon code on the Onyx Network website at onyxnetwork.com. That's onyxnetwork.com.
Tickets are now on sale for Rebels of Disclosure 2025, May 12th through the 15th in Grafton, Illinois at the beautiful Pierre Marquette Lodge and Conference Center. This will be a 4-day event with 12 speakers covering topics such as ET contact, experiencer testimonies, lost history, secret space programs, time travel, Illuminati, parallel realities, and so much more. Visit journeytotruth.online for more details.
My friends, I know I've talked a lot about it, but if you're anywhere near there, or if you're really interested in government conspiracies and such as that, this is the place to go. My friend Tyler Koala is actually running that. That's his voice on the commercial. I've worked with him. I've seen him at different conferences where we both spoke. And his knowledge of secret space fleet, civilizations, advanced civilizations that have been here on Earth, things the government doesn't want us to know, the Smithsonian coming in, giants. I wrote an article on giants a couple of years ago, and then got to talk to him about it. There was entire civilizations of these things that the Smithsonian Institute will take the stuff. And I know it happened. It was in a newspaper article from back in 1915, something like that. A kid in Missouri found a 12-foot long skeleton. It ended up being laid out in the doctor's office for several weeks. People would come by to see it. The Smithsonian asked for it for study. And when they went to get it back, claimed they never got it and didn't know what they were talking about. And I'm hearing that from a lot. Tyler's a great guy to listen to. If you get the chance, you need to check that one out. But let's get back to Keith and talk more about the ghosts and the vampires, my favorite subjects. So, Keith, did you see the movie of Dark Shadows that come out a few years ago?
I'm trying to remember. I may have seen it. It wasn't near as good as the sitcom Dark Shadows,
Yeah.
which was a British sitcom that aired maybe 1967 to 1970.
Mm-hmm. No, the movie with, I think Johnny Depp was in it and a couple others, just didn't capture the magic.
No, it was entertaining, but I didn't think it served justice to vampires overall.
Well, what movie or TV show or special would you say does come closest to explaining it? Or is there one?
I don't know if any of them really explain how a vampire do what they do. I think the only thing so far that I know of would be my book. You don't mind if I show them my book real
please,
quick, do you?
Go right ahead.
How's that look? Is that centered?
Well, let's do it this way. Let me pull it up because I can center it. There we go.
All right.
There's Vampires Dead or Alive in the Hayes House. There is Vampires Dead or Alive. That's the cover. So what part, let's kind of break this up a little bit. Vampires, it's upside down, buddy.
Oh, upside down. I'm upside down. All right. How's that?
That's perfect. Yeah. And
now the Hayes House Ghoster People 2 is no longer in print, but it's still available ebook on Kindle.
Okay.
Someday in the future, when I have time, I would like to break the original book maybe into 3 or 4 different books, and maybe have a book that's like 75 pages long with maybe 20 pages of pictures of the original Hayes House.
Okay.
I can't say if I remember if I got permission to use their pictures for a book, but I did get permission to use their pictures as far as promoting the book, The Hayes House Ghoster People 2. So I guess if your pictures are in a book, you're promoting that book. So anyway, I try to honor the family's wishes when they share intimate photos with me that I did not take myself. So I like to try to do maybe the book's about 340 pages long, and I would try to break that up so it's not such a large amount. People don't want to tackle a book that they can't finish in a couple of months. And if I break it into maybe 4 different sections, that might be something that people are more capable of wanting to pursue a book of that length. And also it makes it more affordable.
And if I read right, there was 2 families involved in that house?
Well, that I wrote about. The first 2 families are at the Hayes House. I wrote about within the Hayes House Ghoster People 2, and that was the Buck family. The Buck family built the house in, was it 1908? Okay. And they lived there until Mr. Buck passed away in 1922. And then the bank took over the house and used it as a boarding home until the Hayes family bought it. Pat and Kathleen Hayes bought it at the beginning of World War II, about 1942. And when they bought the Hayes house, they lived there. Kathleen was the last family member to leave the Hayes house, and she left the Hayes house and sold it in like 1996.
Wow.
And then she moved to a care facility near Tallahassee. So Kathleen had the longest stay at the Hayes house from 1942 until 1996. So it seemed like her presence as a ghost or a spirit was very prevalent. And I would say second to her would be her husband And her, I guess you could say, her husband's mother, Annie Gibson,
Okay.
and of course Annie Hayes, and also Annie Hayes' sister lived there, and her name was Sunshine Gibson. So there was like four main ghosts of spirits, and Jeff Buck was the builder, and he was probably the main one for the Buck family, except for Melissa, and she was like more like a child ghost or spirit, or the youngest child of uh, uh, Jeff Buck. And she gave me her name multiple times, and she seemed to answer questions. I would imagine when Jeff Buck moved there, she might have been the only child that was still at home, because she was his fifth child.
Okay.
So the other kids may have not really lived at the Hayes house. They might have already been grown and moved away from home. So I found it to be a heartwarming story about ghosts and spirits that loved the house and wanted someone to buy it and turn it into a home, especially Kathleen. Kathleen Hayes wanted someone to use it as a family meeting place. Like the Hayes and the Gibson family had met there for Thanksgiving and Christmas during the whole time that Kathleen lived there.
Mhm.
So that was like 1942 to 1996. That's 54 years. So she wanted it to be used by a family. And
Okay.
I'm somewhat of an empath. That's how I first found out about paranormal as a young child. But my empathic abilities aren't that strong without some type of paranormal equipment. But if I spend a lot of time in a certain area, like the owner of the Hayes house, she's an artist, and she just gave me a key and said, come and go when you want and do paranormal research when you want. She just wanted me to be discreet and not to scare anybody, because
Okay.
she rented several rooms out as Airbnb.
Mhm.
So I tried to be very discreet when I did paranormal research, so no one really knew what I was doing, other than myself. And I really enjoyed the opportunity to spend time there. And by doing that, my empathic abilities can pick up on any strong residual energy or any strong presence of a ghost or spirit, in the fact that I kind of feel their strong emotions.
Okay.
I don't know anything else about them, but I pick up those strong emotions. And with Pat Hayes, she just wanted someone to buy the Hayes house, fix it up, and keep it going for years to come. She didn't want it to be torn down as something else built there, or a parking lot be put in.
Keith,
So
one
I
thing
could pick that up.
we haven't talked about is, where is the Hayes house?
It's in Apalachicola, Florida.
Okay. Okay.
I know you're familiar with St. George Island, so
I spent
when
a
you
lot of
come
time
off of St. George Island, you're in East Point, and you want to go west from East Point across the bridge, and then you're in Apalachicola.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all part of Franklin County.
I've been to the Apalachicola Cemetery. I don't know much about the Hayes house. I'm sure I've seen it, but I had no idea what it was. So, what is the main activity there? Elizabeth or Mrs. Hayes?
Well, I would say Kathleen Hayes would be the main one from the Hayes family. And then the secondary activity would be Pat Hayes and his mother, Annie Hayes, who just visited the Hayes house. She used to visit a lot on the weekends. And then Annie Hayes' sister, Sunshine Gibson, she lived there. She lived there from 1942 until she passed away in 1956. So she had cancer. So she's the only one that I know of that passed away in the house.
Okay.
So I would say I got a lot of words on my Obelisk 5.
Okay.
I got a lot of like direct responses. For instance, I asked Pat Hayes a question about the Great Depression when all the housing prices fell in Florida. And I'm trying to remember the word he used, but it wasn't a positive word. You know, he didn't like it. So, and you know, sometimes you ask questions with the Obelisk 5 and you'll get a word right away. And you know, so the Obelisk 5 was very good for picking up data at the Hayes house. And also, I got a lot of cold areas that were shaped like silhouettes. You couldn't make out any of the cold areas. Now, you had to use a thermal imager. At that time, I think I had the TG 86 or 87. It was before I had the thermal camera, the C5 that I have now.
Right.
But I picked up a lot of thermal images of areas that would be very cold. And then if you went back and looked at them again, they would look normal. So you knew it was something there that was just there for a few minutes and then or a few seconds and then it's gone. But somehow a ghost or spirit can draw energy out of a certain area, almost maybe utilize the Obelisk 5B. And when they're drawing that energy out of the area, it makes it momentarily colder than the rest of the environment. Say, like if you're ambient in temperature, you're normal in temperature for a house, you know, which is mainly shady during the summertime, it's probably somewhere between 65 and 70 degrees without any direct sunlight shining in. And I got a lot of the cold spots in the back stairway room by the back stairs. And one of them, it looked like the ghost or spirit had one leg over the railing as you come down the back stairway. Because when I was doing my paranormal research there, I was asking questions like theorizing that the stairwell actually came out to the center of the room instead of kind of ending all of a sudden right in front of the trim around the door leading from the back stairway room into the kitchen. And I think the ghost of spirit was just saying, oh, so you're saying that the stairwell went down this way. And they kind of threw their leg over the railing. And that's what it looked like when I took a picture. So cool. I took several pictures. If you just look at the one picture without comparing it to one of the other pictures, it doesn't really have much meaning. But when you look back at two of the pictures where there's no area that looks like a silhouette of a person standing there with their leg over the railing, you know, you wouldn't catch it unless you had multiple pictures to compare it to. Because thermal imaging is really just color coded. It takes your environment. If everything in the environment was the same color, you wouldn't be able to see anything but just say if it's all normal body temperature, it might be orange.
Okay.
So if everything is cold, like 32 degrees in the house, then it's going to be totally blue. So if a ghost or spirit was there and they were the same temperature, you wouldn't be able to see them. They'd just blend into the background. So you have to have that contrast in your ambient temperature and the temperature of the ghost or spirit being colder. You know, I have picked up ghosts or spirits that were actually warmer than the ambient temperature, but I don't think I picked up anything like that at the Hayes house.
Okay, that's interesting. Let's go back for just a second to the book about vampires. What is the deal, or is it real, or that they're afraid of the Christian cross? Is that actually?
Yes, I think it has to do with the shiny silver. Okay. Anything that's shiny, for instance, like you know how ghosts of spirits or at least vampires, not ghosts of spirits, correction. Vampires, if they get out into the sun, they will denature. And I think it's just a psychological response to the bright, shiny silver, which, they feel like it's going to lighten up and denature them.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it can. I have heard that if you drive a silver stake through a vampire's heart, it will kill them.
Okay.
So that might be another thing that they're fearing when they see anything that's silver.
Okay. And while we're on the topic, if that's the case of that, what happens if you do put a stake through their heart, be it wood or silver? Do you have a body there to deal with, or does it disappear like some of those movies showed?
Well, I would say that it may denature some of the organs if it goes through the heart. I would say probably the body would definitely denature if it was out in the sun. But theoretically, I think if it's just a silver stake through the heart, I think it would kill the vampire. The vampire would cease to be alive.
Okay.
And would just be a piece of biological,
okay,
what remnants of a vampire. But I don't feel that the vampire would like turn to dust automatically. It might take some time because I haven't really went into how a vampire decomposes unless they're in direct sunlight. And I think it unravels their DNA. Denatured DNA is when it comes unraveled. And then that's when they kind of like turn to dust, more or less. It'd be more like if you were made of ice and I put you out in the hot sun, you would melt.
Yeah.
And, and then of course your water would evaporate. And denaturing for a vampire is very quick, and it only happens with direct sunlight. So I think if a silver stake or object was driven through a vampire's heart, it would definitely kill them, but I'm not so sure that it would denature their body as quickly as if they were out in the sun. It might have some denaturing effect, but not like being out in the sun. I don't think they would quickly turn to dust.
The old legends was a vampire could not see itself in the mirror because it didn't have a soul. What do you think on that topic?
Well, I think vampires have souls.
Okay.
I think one of the reasons why you may not be able to see the vampire in a mirror is because they might be able to bend light around themselves so that if light is not actually reflecting off of them, you won't see them in the mirror. Another thing is they might be projecting their image to you telepathically right into your brain. So you're getting the audio and you're getting the visual of the vampire. But if anyone else is in the room, they wouldn't be able to see the vampire because the vampire is being beamed right into your brain. So your consciousness is seeing and hearing the vampire. And another thing is the vampire that you think you're seeing may not really be in the same dimension that you're in. Okay. So even though you're able to somehow see them and hear them, if they're not in the same dimension, they might not have a mirror image.
Aside from that ridiculous movie that came out, 5-6 years ago, where the vampires sparkled in the sunlight, they're usually villains. Are they? Are they predators, or are they just like humans? Decent. Some are good, some are bad.
I think it depends on the vampire. Like during the series of Dark Shadows that ran for like 4 or 5 years, Barnabas Collins, to avoid draining people from blood, made friends of a doctor so he could get his blood directly from the blood bank and drink the blood without having to harm anyone. And So I think vampires have a conscience. It's up to the vampire whether they want to do good or do bad, or, you know, if they want to completely drain a person from their blood so they become a vampire, or whether they just want to drink a little so they survive. I think it's up to the vampire. I think they have the ability to make their own decision on whether they want to be good or bad when it comes to that.
Okay. All right, Keith. Well, we're running out of time here, so let's talk again about your YouTube show real briefly. It's Paranormal Short Session with Keith Evans, right?
Paranormal Short Sessions by Keith Evans.
By, okay. I won't bother changing it now, but yeah, that's by rather than with. Okay, and how many episodes you got on that people can check out?
Oh gosh, I've been putting episodes on there to include promos that I do for the shows, because some of my promos get cut off on Instagram and Facebook because they have to be a little less than a minute. So I put them on YouTube so people get to see everything, since a lot of times I'm collecting paranormal data at the same time.
Okay.
I probably have over 1,000 different paranormal short sessions that I put on there since about March or April of 2021. And I also, in 2021, I was able to go back and put on some clips from the some videos that I did in 2020 at the 1880 Victorian, when I was doing paranormal research in St. Augustine. So there's videotapes on many different locations, and probably just about 1,000 different video clips on my YouTube channel called Paranormal Short Sessions by Keith Evans.
Okay. And your books, once again, there is Vampires Dead or Alive and The Hayes House, Ghosts Are People Too. And you said those are available. Now, Vampires Dead or Alive is available as a paperback. And both are available as ebooks on Kindle, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Right. So Vampires Dead or Alive, which I'm going to have to check out, obviously, and The Hayes House. And next time I'm down there, I'm going to have to stop in and see The Hayes House, I guess. And maybe I'll
the Hayes House is on the corner of 4th Street and D Avenue.
Okay.
So if you know where the post office is, cross the main highway. Once you cross the main highway, they're building a new building for the Gibson Inn. And the only other thing on that corner of that block is the Hayes House. And the Hayes House was bought by the owners of the Gibson Inn. And they use the Hayes House as like, I guess they rent rooms out for the Hayes House. So they're using it more like a motel now.
Okay, well, whatever that takes, but yeah, it's an interesting place, and I love those old Victorian homes. You're pushing to save the Victorian homes, aren't you?
Yeah, I hope they will save as many Victorian homes as possible, because the older the structure, the more opportunity you have to obtain paranormal data, because the more ghosts and spirits can be there, just because more of them lived there when they were alive.
All right. Well, this has been an absolutely delightful conversation and a lot of fun. Thanks for coming on, and thanks for getting hold of me about your vampire stuff.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely intriguing. All right, Keith, we'll have to talk again sometime soon. Maybe I'll get you back on here with some of the other vampire people and see what we can hash out.
All right.
All right. Hey, thanks again for coming on, and we'll see you soon. All right, buddy?
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, that was fun. I love the vampire thing. And it was a shock as we were talking that I found out this house is in Apalachicola, because, there's a restaurant there that made the most magnificent buttermilk pie. And the boats come in right there and get fresh seafood off of them. Because when we were staying every year, sometimes twice a year, we'd get a place there in St. George Island, which is only about 6-8 miles away. And Oh, to cook seafood that's right off the boat, the taste is completely different. And just an amazing area. And then to find out there was that nice haunted place right nearby. Wish I'd have known it. Hey, guys, I want to remind you to join the Unex Network. It's get on the unexnetwork.com and drop down a little bit on the front page. You can sign up. There's 2 or 3 different ways to do it. One of the things you get, though, is the magazine free. It comes to you by email, absolutely free, every month or so. And it has some of the best writers. It's got all paranormal topics, including UFOs, ghosts, demons, Bigfoot, cryptids. I've done articles like this one here on the left. I did an article on the battleship North Carolina. And most recently, I had a cover story on dolls and haunted dolls, which to me, dolls are just creepy anyway. But got a lot of neat stuff in those. And again, it comes to you. You read it at will. You can get paper copies. As I showed earlier, I have paper magazines. I had an article. Oh, that was Haunted Times. I'm sorry. Yeah, I used to write for Haunted Times too. But the Unex magazine like this one that discussed vampires in America, vampires in New Orleans. Again, if you're into it, you should have it. And it comes right to your email box. You can read it at your leisure. And other than that, I guess it's way past time for me to leave. So I want to thank you all for coming. I want you guys to stay warm or cool. I know the weather's in flux right now because it's spring. And again, as I always say, the most important thing of you is stay spooked. Good night.